You're overreacting, Avery. I'm building our future. Logan's voice crackled through the phone, dismissive, distant. Avery Caldwell stood in her Seattle apartment, 8 months pregnant, one hand pressed against her aching lower back, the other gripping her phone so hard her knuckles turned white. The baby kicked, hard, as if sensing her mother's rising panic. The doctors had been clear: third trimester, high-risk pregnancy, minimal stress required. The credit card statements had been equally clear: luxury hotel charges in Los Angeles, downtown Seattle penthouse rentals, password changes on every shared account. And now her husband barely came home anymore. I can't keep doing this alone, Logan, Avery said, her voice breaking. I need you here. The baby. The baby is exactly why I'm working this hard, Logan interrupted. This startup is our future, Avery. Our child's future. You need to trust me. But that night, when Logan texted that he was flying to San Francisco for an emergency investor meeting, Avery's phone buzzed with a different notification. Shared vehicle GPS, Tesla Model S, location, downtown Seattle, 4th Avenue. Not San Francisco. Downtown Seattle. Avery stared at her phone, her heart pounding. The baby shifted, restless, as if urging her forward. Her swollen feet screamed in protest as she slipped on shoes. Her body begged her to stay home, to rest, to trust. But her instincts screamed louder. She drove 23 minutes through Seattle rain, every traffic light an eternity. The luxury high-rise appeared through the windshield, all glass and steel and money. Logan's car sat in the parking garage, exactly where the GPS said it would be. Avery took the elevator up, each floor a countdown to devastation. Before we continue, if you want to uncover what happens next in this shocking tale and never miss another jaw-dropping twist, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell right now. This support helps this channel bring you even more stories like this. Now let's jump deep into the story. When she reached the penthouse level, she heard laughter through the door. Logan's laugh, the one he used to save for her. And a woman's voice, light and careless. The door wasn't fully closed. Avery pushed it open. Logan stood in the living room, arms wrapped around a woman Avery recognized instantly from Instagram. Vanessa Cole, the lifestyle influencer with 2 million followers and a feed full of designer bags and exotic vacations. They were pressed together, his hand on her waist, her head tilted back in laughter, their bodies fitting together like they'd done this 1,000 times before. Logan's eyes met Avery's across the room. For one frozen second, no one moved. Then Vanessa gasped, stepping back. Oh my God, Avery. Logan's voice was flat. This isn't. But Avery didn't wait to hear the excuse. She turned and walked away, silent, her vision blurring with tears, one hand cradling her stomach as if to protect the baby from the truth. She didn't scream, didn't rage, didn't beg. She left. But she wasn't broken. She was thinking. It hadn't always been like this. 2 years earlier, Avery had stood in a vineyard in Napa Valley, surrounded by strings of Edison lights and the people she loved most, watching Logan Pierce promise her forever. I want to build a life with you, Logan had said, his hands holding hers. Not just a marriage, a real partnership, a family, something that matters. She believed every word. Logan had seemed different from the other tech entrepreneurs she'd met through her work as an architectural project manager. He wasn't just chasing wealth. He talked about legacy, about creating something meaningful, about being present for the people he loved. I watched my father work himself to death and miss everything that mattered, Logan had told her on their third date. I won't do that. When we have kids, I'll be there. Every school play, every doctor's appointment, every moment that counts. The wedding had been perfect. Small, intimate, filled with joy and promise. They'd honeymooned in Italy, walking through ancient streets, planning their future over wine and candlelight. 2 years, Logan had said. Let's have 2 years just us, build our careers, then start trying for a baby. It had seemed like a perfect plan. But somewhere between the wedding and the pregnancy test, something had shifted. The pregnancy had been planned, wanted by both of them. Avery had been nervous but excited, already imagining nursery designs and tiny clothes. Logan had seemed thrilled at first. He'd come to the first ultrasound, held her hand while they watched the heartbeat flutter on the screen, posted about becoming a father on social media. But by the second trimester, the late nights had started. Investor meeting ran long. Emergency with the development team. Don't wait up. Flying to LA tomorrow. Client crisis. The doctor's appointments became a solo routine. Avery would sit in waiting rooms, surrounded by couples holding hands, while she stared at her phone, waiting for Logan to text that he was sorry he couldn't make it. Again, by month 7, Logan was barely home 3 nights a week. You don't understand the pressure I'm under, he'd snap when she tried to talk about it. This startup is at a critical stage. We're about to close a major funding round. I'm doing this for us. But Avery had started noticing things that didn't add up. Credit card charges at luxury hotels in Los Angeles when Logan claimed to be in San Francisco. New passwords on their joint banking apps, passwords he didn't share. Whispered phone calls that stopped the moment she entered the room. And then, in her 8th month, when her body was heavy and exhausted and every movement took effort, the distance became a chasm. Logan stopped touching her, stopped asking how she felt, stopped pretending to care. You're being emotional, he'd say whenever she questioned him. It's the pregnancy hormones. You need to calm down. He made her feel crazy for noticing, unreasonable for wanting her husband home. Until the night she saw the GPS notification and realized her instincts had been right all along. Avery drove home in a daze, her hands shaking on the steering wheel. The baby kicked, hard and insistent, as if demanding answers she didn't have. She pulled into her parking spot and sat in the car for 20 minutes, staring at nothing, trying to process what she'd seen. Logan with another woman. In a penthouse Avery hadn't known existed. Looking happier than he'd looked with her in months. Her phone buzzed. Logan, we need to talk. I'm coming home. Avery stared at the message. Part of her wanted to text back, to scream, to demand explanations. But another part, the part that had managed architectural projects worth millions, that had negotiated contracts and solved impossible problems, stayed silent and started thinking. She opened her laptop and began downloading every financial document she could access. Bank statements, credit card records, investment accounts, the shared documents folder with tax returns and business contracts. She saved everything to an encrypted drive, her hands moving mechanically while her mind raced ahead. By the time Logan's key turned in the lock an hour later, Avery had copied 5 years of financial history and encrypted it in 3 separate locations. She closed her laptop and waited. Logan walked in, his expression carefully arranged into something that might have passed for remorse if Avery hadn't just seen him holding another woman. Avery, about tonight. Don't, she said quietly. Don't insult me by pretending it wasn't what it looked like. Logan's jaw tightened. You followed me. You lied to me. You said you were in San Francisco. I can explain. Can you? Avery stood, one hand supporting her lower back. Can you explain why you're renting a penthouse I don't know about? Why you're with another woman when your wife is 8 months pregnant at home? Vanessa is, Logan caught himself. It's complicated. Vanessa. Avery repeated the name. The influencer. The one whose lifestyle brand you've been funding with our money. Logan's face went pale. You don't understand the business. I understand enough. I understand you've been lying to me for months. I understand you've been diverting marital funds. I understand I've been alone through this entire pregnancy while you've been building a life with someone else. Avery, you're being irrational. Get out. This is my apartment too. Get out. Her voice didn't rise, but something in it made Logan step back. Or I call the police and tell them I feel unsafe with you here. Your choice. Logan stared at her, clearly recalculating, clearly trying to figure out how to regain control. We'll talk when you're calmer, he finally said. When you're thinking clearly. He grabbed his keys and left. Avery locked the door behind him, her hand trembling as she slid the deadbolt into place. Then she sat down at her laptop and opened a new browser window. She didn't cry anymore. She searched for divorce attorneys in Seattle, and in New York, and in Chicago, where her cousin Marcus practiced corporate law. By sunrise, she'd sent 3 emails and scheduled 2 consultations. The baby kicked again, gentler this time, and Avery placed both hands on her stomach. I've got you, she whispered. No matter what happens, I've got you. She meant it. The next morning, Logan came back with coffee and apologies. I'm sorry, he said, standing in the doorway with 2 lattes from her favorite cafe. I handled everything wrong. Can we talk? Avery let him in, but only because she needed to see what version of Logan would show up for this performance. He sat across from her in the living room and delivered what must have been a carefully rehearsed speech. The startup is under enormous pressure right now, Logan said. We're in the final stages of a Series B funding round. Investors are breathing down my neck. If we don't close this deal, everything I've built falls apart. And Vanessa? Is an investor liaison, Logan said smoothly. She helps us with social media marketing strategy. The penthouse is a corporate rental for client meetings. What you saw, it wasn't what it looked like. You were holding her. She was upset about a sponsorship deal. I was comforting a business colleague. The lie was so polished, so practiced, that Avery almost admired the craft of it. Almost. The hotel charges in LA? Industry conferences. The password changes? Security protocols. The lawyers recommended it for protecting IP. The fact that you're never home? Logan's expression shifted to wounded patience. Avery, you're 8 months pregnant. Your hormones are all over the place. You're seeing threats that aren't there. I'm working this hard for us, for our family, for our child's future. There it was. The gaslighting dressed up as concern, making her doubt her own perceptions, making her feel crazy for trusting her instincts. Avery took a slow breath, her hand resting on her stomach. Okay, she said softly. Logan visibly relaxed. Okay, I believe you. Thank you. Logan reached for her hand. I promise, once this funding round closes, things will go back to normal. I'll be home more. We'll prepare for the baby together. It's only a few more weeks. Okay. Logan left an hour later, clearly pleased with himself, clearly convinced he'd regained control. He had no idea that while he'd been delivering his speech, Avery's phone had been recording every word. What Logan didn't know was that Avery had started suspecting him months ago, back in month 5 of the pregnancy, when she'd noticed the first unusual charges on their credit card. She hadn't just noticed irregularities, she'd documented them. She'd started keeping a file, screenshots of transactions, printed bank statements, notes time-stamped and dated, GPS data from the shared vehicle app. In month 6, she'd quietly reached out to Marcus, her cousin who specialized in corporate litigation in New York. Hypothetically, she'd said over a video call, if someone suspected their spouse of financial misconduct during marriage, what would they need to prove it? Marcus, brilliant and protective, hadn't needed her to spell it out. Hypothetically, he'd replied, they'd need documentation of joint accounts, evidence of unauthorized transfers, and a forensic accountant to trace money movement. And they'd need to protect their personal assets immediately. Hypothetically, how? Trusts, separate accounts, documentation proving which assets were premarital or inherited. And honestly, Avery, Marcus had looked directly into the camera. If you're asking me this while pregnant, you need a family law attorney. Yesterday, she'd hung up and cried for an hour. Then she'd called a forensic accountant. By month 7, Avery had quietly restructured her entire financial life. The commercial real estate she'd inherited from her grandmother, 3 buildings in Chicago worth $2.3 million, had been transferred into an irrevocable trust with Marcus as trustee. Her personal investment accounts, funded by her salary and bonuses from before the marriage, had been separated into her name only. She'd documented every deposit, every transfer, every dollar that was legitimately hers before Logan had entered her life. The forensic accountant, a sharp-eyed woman named Rita Chun, had reviewed all of it. You're protected on the asset side, Rita had said. But I'm seeing concerning patterns in your husband's business accounts. Money moving in unusual ways. Invoices that don't match service delivery. You want me to dig deeper? Not yet, Avery had said. But keep the documentation ready. Now, standing in her apartment the morning after Logan's gaslighting session, Avery called Rita back. Dig, she said simply. How deep? All the way down. Over the next 2 weeks, Logan's behavior escalated. He stayed away more, made less effort to maintain the facade. And Vanessa's Instagram feed became a roadmap of Logan's actual life. Photo, designer handbag unboxing. Caption, grateful for the amazing people supporting my dreams sparkles, metadata. Posted from downtown Seattle. Date, the same night Logan claimed to be in Portland. Photo, champagne brunch at a waterfront restaurant. Caption, celebrating new partnerships, clinking glasses, background. Barely visible in the reflection, Logan's profile. Photo, first-class plane tickets. Caption, LA bound. Exciting things coming fire. Date, The same weekend, Logan said he was visiting his parents in Colorado. Avery downloaded every post, documented every detail. Rita's preliminary report arrived via encrypted email on a Tuesday afternoon. Findings: $127,000 transferred from joint marital account to VCC Marketing Solutions, LLC, over 8 months. VCC Marketing registered to Vanessa Cole. Invoices submitted for social media services with no evidence of actual deliverables. Additional $89,000 in luxury purchases categorized as business development. $43,000 in investor relations expenses. Preliminary assessment: possible marital asset misappropriation, potential investor fraud, tax liability concerns. Avery closed the file and sat in silence. The baby was moving, active and strong, kicking against her ribs. "I know," Avery whispered, placing her hand over the movement. "I know." She picked up her phone and texted Marcus. "Avery, I'm ready. I want to file." "Marcus, I'll connect you with the best family law attorney in Seattle. Document everything. This is going to get ugly." "Avery, it already is." Logan came home late that Friday night, smelling of expensive perfume that wasn't Avery's. He didn't apologize, didn't explain, just headed straight for the shower. "I'm filing for divorce," Avery said to his back. Logan turned slowly, his expression cycling through surprise, disbelief, and finally settling on condescension. "You're what?" "Filing for divorce. I've already retained an attorney. You'll be served papers next week." Logan laughed. "Avery, you're 9 months pregnant. You're emotional, you're exhausted, you're not thinking clearly. I'm thinking perfectly clearly. Our marriage is over. You can't be serious." "I've never been more serious." Logan moved closer, his voice dropping into that patronizing tone. "Look, I know things have been hard. I know I haven't been around as much as you wanted. But you're about to have a baby. You need me. You can't do this alone. Watch me." "Avery." He reached for her hand. She pulled away. "You're upset. You're scared. It's understandable. But divorce? That's extreme. Let's talk about this after the baby comes, when you're not so." Don't finish that sentence with hormonal or emotional. "I know exactly what you've been doing, Logan. I know about the money you've been funneling to Vanessa. I know about the fake marketing invoices. I know about all of it." For the first time, real fear flickered across Logan's face. "You don't know what you're talking about. I have bank statements. I have credit card records. I have documentation of every fraudulent transfer you've made. And I've had a forensic accountant review all of it." Logan's face went white. "You're bluffing. Try me." They stared at each other across the living room. Two people who'd promised forever, now locked in a battle neither had wanted, but only one had prepared for. "You'll get nothing," Logan finally said, his voice cold. "I'll make sure of it. I'll bury you in legal fees. I'll drag this out until you're too exhausted to fight. You're about to be a single mother with no income. I have income. I have assets. And I have a legal team that specializes in cases like this. You underestimated me, Logan. That was your first mistake." Logan turned and walked out. He didn't come back that night, or the next. On Monday morning, a process server delivered divorce papers to Logan's office. The real war had begun. The divorce filing hit Logan like a freight train. By Wednesday, his attorney, Derek Haynes, a corporate lawyer who specialized in protecting wealthy men from expensive divorces, had reviewed the petition and called an emergency meeting. "Your wife is alleging financial misconduct," Derek said, sliding the papers across his desk. "She's requesting full forensic accounting of all business assets, personal accounts, and investment vehicles. She's also requesting documentation of all transfers exceeding $10,000 over the past 2 years." Logan leaned back, trying to project confidence. "Let her request whatever she wants. She won't find anything." "Are you certain about that?" "My business accounts are clean." "Mr. Pierce, I need to ask you directly. Have you made any transfers of marital funds into business accounts without your wife's knowledge or consent?" Logan hesitated a beat too long. Derek's expression hardened. "How much?" "It's not like that. The money was for legitimate business expenses." "How much?" "Maybe $150,000 over the past year. But it was all for the startup. For marketing, for investor relations." "To whom were these payments made?" Logan shifted uncomfortably. "A marketing consultant. Vanessa Cole. She runs a social media strategy company." The woman from the Instagram account your wife's attorney attached to the filing? Logan's stomach dropped. What? Derek turned his laptop around. On the screen, Vanessa's Instagram feed, annotated with dates, locations, and cross-referenced with Logan's credit card statements. Exhibit A, photo posted March 15th from Paris cross-reference. Logan Pierce credit card charge, Loop Bristol Hotel Paris, March 14th to 17th, $8,400. Exhibit B, photo posted April 22nd, caption, new Birkin bag. Dreams do come true. Cross-reference, Hermes purchase, Logan Pierce Amex, April 20th, $12,500. There were 23 exhibits in total. Your wife, Derek said slowly, has built a comprehensive case documenting misuse of marital assets to fund an extramarital affair. In Washington state, this significantly impacts division of community property. It also potentially exposes you to claims of fraud if any of these expenses were charged to business accounts funded by outside investors. That's not fraud. It's marketing. Did Vanessa Cole provide actual marketing services in exchange for these payments? Silence. Mr. Pierce, did her company deliver any actual, documentable services? She posted about the startup on her social media. How many posts? I don't know, maybe. 3 posts in 8 months. Total engagement, 847 likes, 23 comments, for which you paid her company $127,000. Derek closed the laptop. That's not marketing. That's embezzlement disguised as business expenses. Logan felt the room spinning. What do I do? Pray your wife's forensic accountant doesn't find anything else, and hope she's willing to settle quickly and quietly. Derek leaned forward. And Mr. Pierce, do not move any more money. Don't hide assets. Don't transfer funds. Because right now, you're one subpoena away from serious legal consequences. Logan left the office in a daze and called Vanessa immediately. We have a problem, he said. Vanessa Cole had built her influencer brand on an image of effortless luxury and authentic success. What her 2 million followers didn't know was that most of her luxury lifestyle was funded by exactly one source: Logan Pierce's misappropriated marital assets. When Logan told her about the divorce filing and the forensic investigation, her carefully curated composure cracked. You said your wife would never find out, she hissed. You said your finances were completely separate. I thought they were. You thought? Logan, I have invoices in my company name. I have payments from your business account. If they start digging, they're already digging. Oh my God, I could lose everything. My brand deals, my sponsorships. I just signed a $200,000 contract with a skincare company. If this gets out, it won't if we're smart. Smart? You told me you were separated. You told me the marriage was already over. I said what I needed to say, Logan snapped. And you didn't ask too many questions because you liked the lifestyle I was providing. The line went silent. Don't call me again, Vanessa finally said. As far as I'm concerned, VCC Marketing provided legitimate consulting services. That's my story. You're on your own. She hung up. Logan stood in the parking garage, staring at his phone, watching his carefully constructed life begin to crumble. The court-ordered discovery process was brutal. Every account, every transaction, every financial movement over the past 5 years had to be documented and submitted for review. Logan's startup, Pinnacle Innovations, valued at $4 million during the last funding round, suddenly came under intense scrutiny. Rita Chun was relentless. She traced every dollar Logan had moved, cross-referenced every invoice, interviewed vendors and contractors, and she found something Logan had forgotten about, something he'd never imagined would matter. From Rita Chun, CPA, to Avery Caldwell, Marcus Caldwell, CC, subject, urgent, ownership discovery. Avery, during my review of Logan's startup cap table, I discovered something significant. In 2019, Pinnacle Innovations received early seed funding from Crescent Ventures Fund, which invested $50,000 in exchange for 12% equity. I cross-referenced this with your personal financial records and found that in 2018, you invested $25,000 into Crescent Ventures Fund as part of a diversified investment strategy. According to Crescent's fund documents, you are a limited partner entitled to proportional ownership in all fund investments. This means you are the beneficial owner of approximately 12% of Pinnacle Innovations. Logan likely has no idea about this connection. The fund investment was made before your marriage, and the fund managers wouldn't have necessarily disclosed individual LP names to portfolio companies. As a shareholder, you have right to access company financials, right to attend board meetings, right to review all transactions, potential standing to block certain corporate decisions. I recommend immediate legal consultation. Rita. Avery read the email 3 times. Then she started laughing, a sound somewhere between exhaustion and disbelief. The startup Logan had poured his energy into, the company he'd used to justify abandoning her, she owned part of it. And he had no idea. Marcus called 30 seconds after she forwarded him the email. Please tell me this is real. According to Rita's documentation, yes. Avery, this changes the entire leverage dynamic. He can't hide anything from you. You have legal standing to audit everything. I know. When are you going to tell him? Avery looked down at her stomach, at the baby who would be here any day now. In court, she said. Let it be a surprise. 2 weeks later, Avery went into labor. She called her mother in Chicago. She called Marcus. She called her best friend Sarah. She did not call Logan. Her daughter, Elena Rose Caldwell, was born at 3:47 a.m. on September 28th, weighing 7 pounds, 3 ounces, with a full head of dark hair and her mother's determined grip. Avery held her and cried tears she'd been holding back for months. Hi, baby girl, she whispered. I've got you. I've always got you. Logan found out about the birth from a court notification requiring his presence at a custody hearing. He showed up at the hospital 2 days later, holding flowers and wearing wounded betrayal. You didn't tell me, he said. Avery, sitting up in bed with Elena sleeping in her arms, looked at him with complete calm. Why would I? You haven't been here for any of this pregnancy. Why would the birth be different? She's my daughter. She's our daughter. And you'll have visitation rights once they're established by the court. But you don't get to play devoted father now after months of abandonment. Logan stared at the baby, something complicated crossing his face. Regret, maybe. Or calculation about how fatherhood might play in court. I want to be part of her life. Then you should have been part of mine. You should have been at the ultrasounds, at the doctor's appointments, at 3 in the morning when I was having contractions. But you were too busy funding your mistress's lifestyle with our money. Avery, leave Logan. I'm tired. She's tired. And we have a court date next week where we can discuss everything through our attorneys. He left. Avery closed her eyes and breathed in the smell of her newborn daughter's head. It's you and me, she whispered. And we're going to be just fine. The courthouse in downtown Seattle was modern and imposing, all glass and steel and the weight of legal consequence. Logan arrived 15 minutes early, flanked by Derek Haynes and a junior associate carrying 2 briefcases. He expected to see a tired, overwhelmed new mother barely keeping it together. What he saw instead made him stop walking. Avery stood near the courtroom entrance in a charcoal gray suit, her hair pulled back professionally, her posture straight despite having given birth less than 3 weeks ago. Her mother stood beside her, holding baby Elena in a carrier. But it was the 3 people behind Avery that made Logan's blood run cold. Marcus Caldwell, in a suit that probably cost more than Logan's car payment, and 2 attorneys Logan recognized from legal publications, Jennifer Morrison and Robert Clark, senior partners at Morrison & Clark, a Manhattan-based firm that specialized in high-stakes corporate litigation and had a reputation for absolutely destroying their opponents. What the hell? Logan whispered. Derek Haynes had gone pale. Morrison & Clark don't do family law. They do securities fraud. They do RICO cases. They do financial crimes. The junior associate finished quietly. The bailiff called their case. They filed into the courtroom. Judge Patricia Ramirez was a no-nonsense jurist who'd spent 15 years on the bench. She reviewed the case file with sharp eyes, then looked up. This was filed as a standard marital dissolution, she said. But I'm seeing allegations of financial misconduct, requests for forensic accounting, and representation that suggests this is something more. Would someone like to explain? Jennifer Morrison stood, her presence commanding immediate attention. Your Honor, what began as a dissolution filing has revealed evidence of systematic misappropriation of marital assets, fraudulent business practices, and potential securities violations. We request that the court allow us to present our findings. Derek jumped to his feet. Your Honor, this is a divorce proceeding, not a criminal trial. Sit down, Mr. Haynes, Judge Ramirez said mildly. I want to hear this. Ms. Morrison, proceed. Jennifer nodded to her associate, who activated a presentation on the courtroom screen. Your Honor, over the past 18 months, Mr. Pierce transferred $341,000 from joint marital accounts and business accounts funded partially by marital assets to a shell company called VCC Marketing Solutions, LLC. The screen showed bank records, highlighted in yellow. VCC Marketing is registered to Vanessa Cole, a social media influencer with whom Mr. Pierce was conducting an extramarital affair during his wife's pregnancy. Photographs appeared. Logan and Vanessa at restaurants, at hotels. Screenshots of Instagram posts cross-referenced with credit card charges. The transfers were disguised as business expenses for marketing services. However, our forensic investigation found that no actual marketing services were rendered. Instead, the funds were used to purchase luxury goods, finance travel, and maintain Ms. Cole's lifestyle. More exhibits. Receipts for jewelry, designer handbags, first-class flights. Logan felt sweat beading at his temples. Furthermore, these business expenses were deducted on tax returns for Pinnacle Innovations, constituting potential tax fraud. They were also misrepresented to investors as legitimate business development costs, which may constitute investor fraud. The courtroom was completely silent except for the sound of Jennifer's heels clicking. Your Honor, Mrs. Caldwell filed for divorce after discovering a pattern of financial misconduct that threatened both her personal assets and potentially exposed her to legal liability for Mr. Pierce's fraudulent activities. Judge Ramirez leaned forward. Mr. Haynes, would your client like to respond to these allegations? Derek stood slowly. Your Honor, my client maintains that all business expenses were legitimate. Then I'm sure he won't mind providing documentation of the marketing deliverables Ms. Cole provided in exchange for $341,000. Derek opened his mouth, closed it. We'll need to review. You've had 3 weeks since the discovery request was filed. Has VCC Marketing provided any documentation of actual services rendered? Silence. Your Honor, Jennifer continued. We've also uncovered something else relevant to this proceeding. She nodded to her associate. A new document appeared on the screen, Pinnacle Innovations Capitalization Table. In 2019, Pinnacle Innovations received seed funding from Crescent Ventures Fund. That fund invested $50,000 in exchange for 12% equity in the company. Logan frowned, confused. Mrs. Caldwell, prior to her marriage, invested $25,000 as a limited partner in Crescent Ventures Fund. Under the fund's operating agreement, limited partners retain proportional ownership rights in all portfolio investments. The blood drained from Logan's face. This means Mrs. Caldwell is the beneficial owner of approximately 12% of Pinnacle Innovations. As a shareholder, she has legal standing to access all company financials, review all transactions, and potentially block certain corporate decisions. Logan shot to his feet. That's not. She can't. Sit down, Mr. Pierce. Judge Ramirez said sharply. Your Honor, she has no right. Sit down. Logan collapsed back into his chair. Avery owned part of his company. The company he'd sacrificed his marriage to build. She owned part of it. And now she could see everything. Mr. Haynes, the judge said, I'm ordering an immediate freeze on all business accounts for Pinnacle Innovations pending a full audit. I'm also referring this matter to the IRS and the SEC for investigation of potential fraud. We'll reconvene in 30 days. In the meantime, Mr. Pierce is forbidden from transferring, hiding, or otherwise manipulating any assets. Am I clear? Yes, Your Honor. Judge Ramirez looked directly at Logan. Mr. Pierce, I suggest you get your financial house in order. Because if even half of what Mrs. Caldwell's attorneys are alleging is true, you're going to need a criminal defense attorney, not a divorce lawyer. She banged her gavel. Court adjourned. The fallout was immediate and catastrophic. Within 48 hours, Pinnacle Innovations investors called an emergency board meeting. The venture capital firm that had led the Series B round, $3.5 million that was supposed to close in 2 months, withdrew their term sheet. We can't invest in a company under IRS and SEC investigation. The reputational risk alone disqualifies this opportunity. Logan's business partner, David Chun, who'd co-founded Pinnacle with him, requested his own attorney review the company finances. I had no idea about any of this, David said, his voice shaking with anger. You told me those marketing expenses were legitimate. You told me Vanessa was bringing in actual business. Did you use company funds to finance your affair? David, it's not what it looks like. I've known you for 6 years. I trusted you with my career, my savings, my reputation. And you did this. David stood up. I'm calling for a shareholder vote to remove you as CEO. Effective immediately. The vote was unanimous. Logan Pierce was out. Vanessa Cole's world collapsed even faster. The screenshots from the court filing leaked online within a week. The story went viral in hours. Influencer-funded luxury lifestyle with married man's stolen money while his wife was pregnant. The headline was everywhere. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, every gossip blog and social media commentary channel. Vanessa's sponsorship deals evaporated overnight. The skincare company terminated her $200,000 contract. A luxury watch brand pulled her ambassadorship. 3 clothing companies demanded the return of free merchandise. Her follower count dropped by 400,000 in 3 days. The comments on her posts were brutal. Imagine stealing from a pregnant woman. Disgusting. All that designer stuff bought with someone else's money. Fraud. Your entire life is a lie. Delete your account. Vanessa posted a tearful apology video that made things worse. I didn't know he was still married, she sobbed. He told me they were separated. I was lied to just like she was. No one believed her. The receipts were too extensive. The timeline too clear. She deleted Instagram 2 weeks later. Logan sat in his nearly empty apartment and watched his phone light up with notifications. Text from his mother. How could you do this? To a pregnant woman? I'm so ashamed. Email from his former colleague. Just saw the news. Wow. And then the notification that made his stomach drop. IRS notice of audit subject. Tax years 2022 to 2024. He opened it with shaking hands. The audit would review all business deductions for Pinnacle Innovations, with specific focus on marketing and business development expenses exceeding $300,000. Logan knew what they'd find. Fake invoices. No deliverables. Personal expenses disguised as business costs. He was looking at penalties, interest, and potential criminal charges. He called Derek Haynes. I need a criminal defense attorney. I know, Derek replied. This is beyond divorce law now. This is fraud. This is tax evasion. This is potentially prison time. Logan ended the call and sat in silence. He'd lost his wife, his daughter, his company, his investors, his reputation. All because he'd underestimated the woman he'd promised forever to. All because he'd thought she was too vulnerable, too emotional, too pregnant to fight back. He'd been catastrophically wrong. 3 months after the divorce hearing, Avery Caldwell stood in her grandmother's old apartment in Chicago's Lincoln Park neighborhood, holding Elena and looking out at the city she'd grown up in. The apartment was beautiful, hardwood floors, tall windows, the kind of space that felt like home in a way Seattle never quite had. She'd moved back to be near family, to let her mother help with Elena, to rebuild her life away from the wreckage of her marriage. She's getting so big, Avery's mother said, leaning over to stroke Elena's cheek. The baby was 4 months old now, healthy and thriving, completely unaware that her existence had catalyzed the destruction of her father's entire world. She is. Have you heard from Logan? Through attorneys only. He's facing federal tax charges and a civil lawsuit from his former business partner. His assets are frozen pending the criminal investigation. He wants visitation rights, but his lawyer admitted he can't afford to travel to Chicago right now. He's broke. Good, her mother said fiercely. Mom. Avery touched her arm gently. It's over. He can't hurt me anymore. And it was true. The divorce had been finalized 6 weeks ago. The settlement gave Avery full custody, child support based on Logan's future earning capacity, and her 12% ownership stake in Pinnacle Innovations, which had been sold to a competitor for $1.2 million during the bankruptcy proceedings. Avery's share, $144,000, deposited directly into a trust fund for Elena. Logan's share, seized by the IRS to cover back taxes and penalties. The federal investigation had been thorough and damning. The DOJ charged him with 3 counts of tax fraud and 2 counts of wire fraud related to misrepresenting expenses to investors. His former business partner David Chun had sued him for breach of fiduciary duty and embezzlement. The civil case was settled out of court. Logan agreed to forfeit his remaining equity in Pinnacle and signed over all rights to the company's intellectual property in exchange for David dropping the embezzlement charges. The criminal case went to trial. Logan took a plea deal, 3 years of probation, 500 hours of community service, full restitution to the IRS totaling $87,000, and a felony conviction that would follow him for the rest of his life. He avoided prison, but he lost everything else. His LinkedIn profile was deleted. His professional network evaporated. No startup would hire him with a fraud conviction on his record. Last Avery heard, he was working as a project coordinator for a mid-sized logistics company in Tacoma, making $45,000 a year. From tech startup CEO to mid-level employee. From a $4 million company valuation to a criminal record. From married father-to-be to convicted felon living alone. The fall had been absolute. Vanessa Cole never recovered her influencer career. She tried to rebrand with a redemption arc and posts about learning from mistakes. But the internet has a long memory. Every post was flooded with comments reminding her of what she'd done. She eventually gave up on social media entirely and took a job in retail management in Phoenix, as far from Seattle as she could get. Her last Instagram post, still up but with comments disabled, was a black screen with white text. I made mistakes that hurt people. I'm sorry. I'm logging off to work on becoming better. It had 127 likes. She'd once had posts with 50,000. Avery's life, meanwhile, had bloomed. She'd launched her own architectural consulting firm, Caldwell Design Collective, specializing in maternal-friendly urban housing and family-centered community planning. Her first major project was a mixed-use development in Chicago's West Loop, apartments designed with new mothers in mind, featuring soundproof nursery walls, built-in diaper-changing stations in public areas, lactation rooms, and ground-floor childcare facilities. We designed for the reality of parenting, Avery told an interviewer from Architectural Digest, not the Instagram version. The project won an award from the American Institute of Architects. Venture capital firms started reaching out, interested in funding expansion. One of those partners was the firm that had acquired Pinnacle Innovations. We were impressed by your strategic thinking during the divorce proceedings, the CEO told her during their first meeting. Anyone who can build a case like that while 9 months pregnant is someone we want on our team. Avery consulted on their urban development projects, bringing her expertise and her unique perspective to designs that actually worked for families. She made more money in her first year of consulting than she'd made in 3 years as a project manager. And she did it all while raising Elena, who was now a bright, curious toddler who loved blocks and books and making her mother laugh. One afternoon in late spring, Avery was walking along the Chicago River Walk with Elena in a stroller, enjoying the sunshine and the sound of the water. Her phone buzzed with a news alert. Pinnacle Innovations' competitor launches revolutionary urban planning platform. Former advisor Avery Caldwell consulted on family-centered design. The article featured photos of the West Loop project, quotes from Avery about sustainable urban development, and a mention that she'd overcome personal challenges to build her firm. There was one reference to Logan, buried in the 10th paragraph. Pierce, who co-founded the now-defunct Pinnacle Innovations, could not be reached for comment. Avery read it once, then put her phone away. Elena was reaching for a dandelion growing through a crack in the pavement, her tiny fingers grasping at the yellow petals. "Gentle, baby," Avery said softly, helping her touch the flower carefully. Elena laughed, delighted, and Avery realized something profound. She'd stopped thinking about Logan weeks ago. He wasn't part of her mental landscape anymore. Wasn't a source of pain or anger or even satisfaction at his downfall. He was just gone, irrelevant. The revenge she'd planned had been necessary, the legal battle unavoidable, the exposure of his crimes justified. But the real victory wasn't his collapse. It was this, sitting in the sunshine with her daughter, building a career she loved, surrounded by people who valued her, living a life she'd designed for herself. Logan had thought abandoning her during pregnancy would free him to pursue his dreams without the burden of family responsibility. Instead, it had freed Avery to build something better than either of them had imagined. She stood up and continued walking along the river. Elena babbled happily, pointing at boats and birds and all the beautiful things she was too young to name, but old enough to love. "You want to know something?" Avery said to her daughter, even though Elena couldn't understand yet. "Your dad thought I was weak. Thought pregnancy made me vulnerable, easy to manipulate, too emotional to fight back. She adjusted the stroller. He was wrong about all of it. Pregnancy didn't make me weak. It made me absolutely certain about what mattered. And motherhood didn't destroy my life. It saved it. 5 years later, Elena was 7 years old, starting second grade, and completely uninterested in the complicated story of how her parents' marriage had ended. All she knew was, Mama worked designing buildings. Mama was really good at it. Daddy lived far away, and she saw him sometimes during summers. Logan had eventually completed his probation, rebuilt a modest life, and sent child support payments on time every month. He'd requested phone calls with Elena, which Avery facilitated without resentment or hostility. "Hi, Daddy," Elena would say dutifully, then spend 10 minutes describing her soccer team or her science project with the kind of polite disinterest children reserve for distant relatives. She didn't remember the apartment in Seattle, didn't remember the courtroom, didn't remember any of the devastation. For Elena, life had always been Chicago, Mama's architecture firm, Grandma's cookies, Uncle Marcus's terrible jokes. It was normal, stable, happy, and Avery had made sure it stayed that way. On the 5-year anniversary of her divorce being finalized, Avery received an unexpected letter. It was addressed in handwriting she recognized, Logan's. She almost threw it away unopened. But curiosity won. Inside, a single page. "Avery, I know I have no right to contact you outside of legal channels regarding Elena, and I know nothing I say can undo the damage I caused. But I wanted you to know, I'm proud of what you've built. I saw the article about your firm winning the Chicago Urban Planning Award. Your work is incredible. You were always smarter than me, more strategic, more capable. I was just too arrogant to see it until it was too late. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that you were right about everything, and I was wrong. I hope Elena knows how lucky she is to have you as her mother. Logan." Avery read it twice. Felt nothing. No satisfaction. No anger. No vindication. Just a quiet acknowledgement that the man who'd once destroyed her peace had finally understood the magnitude of what he'd thrown away. She folded the letter, placed it in a file marked Legal Archive, and went back to reviewing blueprints for her next project. The past was finished. The future was hers to design, and she was building something beautiful. In this story, you learn that abandoning someone during their most vulnerable moment has consequences that extend far beyond a simple divorce. You learn that underestimating a woman's strength, especially a mother's strategic intelligence, is a catastrophic mistake. And you learn that true revenge isn't about destruction. It's about building a life so fulfilling that the person who betrayed you becomes completely irrelevant. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel and share it with someone who needs to hear it. And tell us in the comments, what would you have done in Avery's position? Remember, kindness is not weakness. Silence is not surrender. And preparation always defeats arrogance. See you in the next story.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Subscribe, like, and click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.